welcome back. My name is Hannah and I am going to review my best nonfiction that I have read this year. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and I hope that some of you have read some of these books. I found all of these to be really excellent and I have quite the list of nonfiction that was really good this year, so let's jump into it. My top favorite nonfiction, the one that I think is an essential read, is Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty by Patrick Radden Keefe. Now, this was excellent. I couldn't put it down, and it felt so relevant. It talks about the opioid epidemic in the United States and the Sacklers and Purdue Pharma, and it was just so well researched, so well done, so engaging. Excellent book, just well written, timely, well researched, everything. I'm gonna put up there as well Say Nothing by the same author, Patrick Radden Keefe. He just has a talent. I found this to be very well researched, very engaging as well, and this was talking about the troubles in Ireland. The reason that this isn't in the top spot is that I felt like maybe the Sackler book was a little more immediate and relevant to, things that I see in my life. Not to say that the troubles aren't still very relevant. So both of these books were excellent, and I was amazed at how well the author was able to go into depth on these complicated subjects and really feel like I've got a good overview of what's gone on, but he still is very forthcoming about where his shortcomings are, and I thought they were both excellent. And if anyone has read any other books by Patrick Radden Keefe, let me know if they are worth reading. They're a little older. These are his most recent ones, and so I absolutely adored them. 5 stars, recommend both of those. Now, I did read a lot of books about the history of racism in the United States and current problems with racism and people of color, and I'll go into a few of the books that I really enjoyed and found very useful in this category. So one that was excellent and I do recommend is The Sum of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together by Heather McGhee. And this was great. It went through how racism hurts people of color, but also it hurts the privileged white people in the US. It hurts everyone, and how it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. It's not but if these people get more privileges, then I'm gonna lose them. No, we can all work and build together. And I loved that, and I loved all the research that went into this to show historically how this kind of came about and how this mindset came about, and how we can work to start overcoming some of that. And I really enjoyed that. Along with that, I also read 400 Souls, A Community History of African America from 1619 through 2019. And this was a compilation of, I think it's like more than 80 different authors, and they all had a different time period and they focused on different issues, and it was such a wonderful overview of the history of the United States. I thought it was very interesting to see so many different perspectives. I think all or most of these authors are Black, and their experiences in the United States, and they are all like activists and scholars and all sorts of experts in their fields, and they've all come together to write this excellent book. So I definitely recommend this one. This one was really good. Along with that, I also loved the book Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. This was just really well researched, just went through, mostly focusing on the US, but also focused on different caste systems throughout the world, and how that is specifically the caste system in India and the caste system in Nazi Germany, and how those have come to be, and really I found it very enlightening and very interesting. So I do recommend this one as well to educate yourself. It's a great one to start with. A nice primer on all things racism, anti-racism. It's stamped Racism, Anti-Racism, and You by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. And this was just a really good way to start, a good way to look at yourself and think, okay, how am I contributing? How am I, like, what is historically the actual problems here, and what can we do to move forward? So I really enjoyed, I thought this was a really good book to introduce people to these ideas. She Said, Breaking the Sexual Harassment Story That Helped Ignite a Movement by Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohey is very similar to the book Catch and Kill, Lies, Spies, and a Conspiracy to Protect Predators by Ronan Farrow, and both were excellent and very interesting. They follow the Harvey Weinstein case and breaking that case in the press, and I was glad that I had read both. I thought that both of them were really excellent and brought something a little different. I think if you're only going to pick one, just read one. Like, you could get by with just reading one, but both of them are really good. The difference, I feel like, is She Said focuses a lot more on women's issues and focuses a little bit more on the cost to women that people like Harvey Weinstein and the structures that we have cause, but Catch and Kill focuses a little bit more on the press and how the news organizations are leaned on by these influential people to find these stories and then to kill them and not to put them in print. And so I thought that both of them brought something very interesting, and both of them were super informative, and especially just very timely, very relevant with the Me Too movement and all sorts of things, and just looking at how these predators have been given a free pass for a very long time in our society. So I think everybody should try to read at least one of these. They are excellent. For one that I recently read, I really enjoyed Forget the Alamo, The True Story of the Myth That Made Texas by Brian Burrow, Chris Tomlinson, and Jason Stanford. I didn't know much about the Alamo before reading this, but getting an overview on what happened at the Alamo and how the myth has grown around that and how it has been used throughout the history of the United States and the history of Texas was very interesting, and I do recommend it for anyone wanting to know a little bit more about the founding of the United States, or specifically the founding of Texas. It was a really good read. For a bit more of a heavy book, I thought King Leopold's Ghost by Adam Hochschild was very informative. It talks a lot about King Leopold II of Belgium, where he seized the area of the Congo and how so many people were killed trying to get rubber, and it was horrible. It was an awful, just these people being murdered and worked to death, and it was awful to read, but very informative, especially about a time and a place that I did not quite know. I didn't know very much about things surrounding the Congo during this time period, and I am surprised that I haven't actually read Heart of Darkness or any of those, but I think Heart of Darkness is about this. Somebody correct me if that's not what it's about. But anyways, I thought that this was very interesting, a very in-depth look, a little bit of a heavier one though, but still excellent. We'll keep going. Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family by Robert Kolker. I thought this was super interesting. This was a family with 12 children, and 6 of them were diagnosed with schizophrenia. And this talks about their lives, their case. It's really sad. Their lives were really difficult. There was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of difficult things that went on, but it kind of takes a look into how could this happen all in one family, and some of the science behind schizophrenia and how we treat it, and how it's been treated over over the years. So I thought this was a really interesting look into mental health, although there are some things that might be triggering to some people because there is a lot that deals with mental health and abuse and a lot of things that were very difficult that this family went through. So I do recommend it, though. I thought it was very interesting and a very interesting look into this disease that I feel like has such a strong stigma around it. Okay, so for a little bit more memoirs, I read The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin, and this talks a little bit about his life, and it first appeared in 1963 and is, right at the emerging civil rights movement, and it still feels super relevant today. So I thought this was super interesting, and I do recommend. Another interesting memoir was When Time Stopped, a memoir of my father's war and what remains. Now, this follows a woman who finds some information about her father and that he was in the war and what happened with his family. And I just really liked it for the kind of family history aspect that she was looking into what happened with her ancestors and her search. So I thought that was super interesting as she learned that she was actually, she didn't even realize that she was Jewish until she was an adult. And this was something that she had to learn because it was something her father didn't want to talk about. He moved them all to, where was it? I want to say somewhere in South America, and just never talked about it. So her journey of discovery was very interesting. So I do recommend this one as well. It's by Ariana Neumann. Now, this is probably the most powerful memoir that I read this year. This is Know My Name by Chanel Miller, and she writes in such a clear and powerful way. I was blown away that she could talk about such difficult things in such a clear way. This is her story of what happened when she was assaulted by Brock Turner on Stanford's campus, and the process that she went through. And I thought it was so enlightening to see how horrible the justice system is in the United States for these types of crimes, and how it was just so traumatizing over and over again, and her journey and her strength. And I was just in awe of her ability to express herself with such a difficult thing. It was very, very powerful. So really do recommend this one. Okay, I also thought the book Hollywood Park by Mikhail Jolet was amazing. This book was his memoir of his life, and his family was part of a cult, and just getting out of that and dealing with all the consequences and working through what he had to work with. It was very inspiring, very just such a good memoir. I feel like I learned a lot, and then I got to the end and I was like, oh my goodness, I read this without realizing that he is the lead singer for Airborne Toxic Event. I have seen them in concert. I didn't even realize it. I feel like if I had known that it was the lead singer of Airborne Toxic Event, I would have maybe just read it anyway. But this book, you know how a celebrity can write a book and you read it just because the celebrity wrote it? I feel like this book deserved to be written regardless of who wrote it. He had such an interesting life, such important things to say, that it was important regardless of who he was. So I really liked this book. I do think it was a very good memoir, and that is my favorite memoirs that I have read this year. Okay, so I know this might have been a bit of a longer video, but these were some of the best nonfiction that I have read this year, and I hope that I remembered, for the synopsis, I hope I remembered them all okay. It has been a little while for some of them since I read them, but if anyone has any thoughts on these, please let me know, and let me know any nonfiction that you highly recommend, because starting in the new year, I do love a good nonfiction book. I love memoirs, and I also just really love books that are really well researched and that can teach me something new. So let me know, and I will see you all on the next one.